Hi everyone, welcome to Circle Healing Connection. This is Angela.
And this is Madhu.
Today, it's an honor to have Jerry with us today. Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you for having me.
Jerry had a successful career in financial industry for more than 25 years, and he is the creator behind a blog named Four Columns, which is on food, faith, finance, and family. It is ranked number 12 in the world and women empowerment, and number 12 in Canada on lifestyle. And he's also a podcaster on the Elephant in the Asian Room. It's such an honor to have Jerry with us today.
Thank you, Madhu. Thank you, Angela. Thank you for having me. I really consider it a privilege and a joy to be here with you, sharing.
True, it is our honor to have such a knowledgeable man and who is not just knowledge, but also putting that knowledge to good use in community and trying to change it from within itself. It's wonderful. So, Jerry, actually, today I would like to talk about the importance of men and to be open about our feelings and mental health in men. Let's just would you like to shed some light on that?
Madhu, thank you very much. Very, very important question. I spent more than 25 years in financial services counseling couples. I've counseled more than 500 couples during my career. And one of the main reasons women gave me was why they were leaving their husbands was they could not connect emotionally with the male and that he was not open about his feelings. The first thing I want to address is the idea of the traditional macho male. I think we as men, we get so caught up in preserving ourselves that we hurt ourselves and others. Men have a lot of difficulty translating the emotional experiences into words. The way we have been raised traditionally and socially has made our masculine identity conflict with emotions of what we feel. And hence, we as men are ashamed to think we are weak when we express our authenticity, our vulnerability, our dependency, our weaknesses, and our feelings. However, what psychologists have realized was, especially after the Vietnam War, there was this whole bunch of war veterans who were committing suicide. And it was only in 1980 that the American Psychological Association came up with the PTSD syndrome. And across North America, what psychologists have also noticed is a high alcohol consumption,
Mm.
suicide, domestic violence among police and firemen. And what they've realized is these macho men see crime and issues and murders on a daily basis, and they don't talk about it. So over the last two decades, police forces across North America have mandated that frontline workers talk about the different situations they face and deal with it. I also want to give an example. In Durham region, I've been working out with an emergency task force officer for more than 10 years. And this guy's a tall, macho guy. And in any crime or in any situation in terms of terrorism, he was the first guy who take the metal thing and break the door. And then, all the guns, men with guns following him. And I'll never forget, God said, Jerry, after every event, we all sit down and talk about it. We talk about what we face. We talk about our feelings because that makes us better.
Wow.
And he says if any officer refuses to talk about it, we don't take him on the next thing because what they also realize is the more you stuff and the more you stuff in, the only way you medicate yourself is through drugs and alcohol. So I think it is very important for men to talk about the feelings and not to see it as a sign of weakness. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jerry. What do you think are some of the barriers for men in seeking help or counseling in general?
Wow. Okay. How much time do you have for that? I can write a whole book on that. But I think, Angela, the first issue is the stigma of mental health. I think mental health impacts men of all social classes, creed, color, and sections of society. People think, oh, mental health is that homeless male that we see on the street. Oh,
Mm.
mental health is that alcoholic. But people think also, oh, someone who has mental health issues is crazy, he's weak, he's unpredictable, he's different, he's dangerous. And men in our psychology think, oh, I don't want to be weak. I want to be
Mm-hmm.
strong. I want to be a provider. I want to be the rock, and I want to take on all the responsibilities. However, all research done over the last 50 years has shown that when you think that way, it decreases our self-esteem. So that is the big thing about the first I would say is men think, oh, it's a weakness to get help. The second I would say is the poor understanding of mental health in many communities
Mm-hmm.
across the world, and even in North America. You know, when men have depression, they think, oh, you know, I'm just feeling down, or I'm just being lazy. And then they think, some men who are very anxious, they think, oh, I'm overworried. Men think that by medicating themselves with booze and drugs and porn, oh, let me go gambling, oh, that's the macho thing.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, one thing what I would do want to say is, and I've seen this many marriages destroyed, is addiction with porn. Men are destroying themselves, their self-esteem, and their relationship with their wives and their daughters by getting addicted to porn. The third one is, I would say, just accessing services. Some of it is very expensive. So men think that, you know, why should I go and spend 120 to $150 an hour and talk about themselves? You know, it's just, they're very uncomfortable with that whole financial burden thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing is, and this is very important, and I really wanted to zone onto this. Women with depression tend to act in through emotions like, you know, I'm worthless, I'm helpless, and guilt. Men are more likely to act out. And what I mean by that is through expressions of anger, poor impulse control, and alcohol abuse. So when you do see those signs in male, you know that there's something going on, that there's depression there.
Wow. Like this is actually a very great point. As you're speaking, like I can put the whole life scenarios together and come to like, wow, yes, I've seen those things happening around me. I don't think I've realized it, but yeah, I will definitely be looking at it totally different perspective. Thanks, Jerry. Jerry, talk to us about the midlife crisis. What is it about, and where do you think this crisis even comes from?
Oh wow, man, you're giving me some great questions and something to think about. I really wanted to write a book about this because I'll be honest here, midlife crisis is real. Midlife is a time when, you know, men are not parented anymore and have all the
Mm.
responsibilities. During midlife, men are burdened by taking care of children, we're taking care of parents, and we are faced with loss of youth. You know, our previous roles and responsibilities and opportunities are not there. Midlife also is associated with a shift in our sense of time, leading us to reflect on our lives so far, decisions we've made, and the future. Midlife transition does not have to involve calamity, but for some people, it turns into a predicament.
Mhm.
Midlife crisis can occur in both men and women, but take a particular form in men facing identity crisis, often spilling into family life. Men in midlife feel hopelessly trapped in an identity or lifestyle they've experienced as constraining, fueled by an acute awareness of time passing. I want to share my own example. You know, I was a vice president with Fisher Investments. I was making six figures salary, big bonus. I was flying to Europe. I was flying to New York. I was closing all these accounts and deals. I was living in a fancy hotel. You know, we would eat out as often as possible. And then 2 days before my 50th birthday, I got laid off.
Ooh.
And it was a shock to me. I was working for 32 years straight from the age of 18. And what I realized was I had linked my ego and
Mm.
my identity to my LinkedIn status, Gerald Godino, MBA, all these designations, traveling and all that stuff. And I linked my ego and my identity to my paycheck. For 32
Mm.
years, every 2 weeks, there was a paycheck coming in. And
Yeah.
I experienced weird feelings and emotions. And also during this time, I lost two of my closest male friends.
Ooh, that's
It
hard.
took me a while to get my bearings straight. So it is real. It is an identity crisis. Also, you question yourself, is this it? Okay, I bought the homes, I bought the cars, I've traveled. Is this it? And Also, I think men do a big mistake through that. Instead of dealing with it, we go and get a fast car and we go and start finding a girl 20 years younger than us. So that's a big thing we do. But someone told me something really important, and I'll never forget sitting. I really respect this guy. He's about 20 years my senior. And he said something to me. He said, Jerry, you know what? You've been successful all your life. Now it's time for you to move to becoming significant, making a difference in life, aligning your goals and values with things. So what I've really done is channel that midlife crisis, not become a victim, but overcoming it. Starting a blog, dealing with women health issues, starting a podcast, dealing with things what's happening in our culture, becoming a mentor, making a difference at the same time working, and that's giving me more fulfillment. That's giving me more. It's just making me more full rather than saying, okay, well, there's a reason what I've been through all this in my life. There's a reason, and let me go out there and make a difference. I hope that makes sense to you what I'm sharing and to the audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely see you are making a big difference in the world with what you're doing. So, Jerry, would you like to just share with the men some good advice you like to offer, you like to share?
Oh wow, y'all are coming up with some amazing, amazing questions. Thank you for that. Um, so Angela and Madhu, firstly, I've been married for 19 years. I have a 16-year-old daughter, and I'll never forget on my 10th wedding anniversary. I was really feeling good about myself. I'm like, yeah, I've got a great job, daughter, and we are in a five-star resort on the beach having dinner with my wife. And I like to ask my wife how I'm doing in life because my wife is not very critical. If I ask my daughter how I'm doing as a dad, I always get 3 to 4 things I need to work on. Dad, you don't focus. Dad, you're not a great listener. Dad, you need to give me more time and all that stuff. So of course I like to ask my daughter, or my wife how I'm doing in life. And until then, my wife has never really pointed out anything in my character or whatever. So with an inflated ego and I'm all like excited, I'm like, hey, tell me how I'm doing as a husband. And I'm expecting this great answer from her, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm thinking, you know what, during our marriage I've never been drunk, I've never been drugs, I've never hit her. I think we've had like 3 4 fights, and I'm like expecting a nice pat on my back, great done husband, great done. And I'm like, my ego's building up, the waiter, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then she just says, Jerry, you're a horrible sleeper. And I'm like, what? So yeah, Jerry, it takes you 1 to 1.5 hours to go to sleep. And even when you're sleeping, you're twisting and turning the whole night. I was like, it hit me. And then she says, oh, also, Jerry, when we hang out with some specific people, you're not the same for 3 4 5 days. And I'm telling you, it was really, I felt like not a slap, but she took a big bat and just hit me. And it hit me. And then after dinner, I left my wife and daughter and I went for a long walk on the beach. And it suddenly hit me. And I looked back and I'm like, right from university, I was always tired. And, 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 and I just didn't get it. But it was a woman who was intuitive, who had the guts to speak out, putting her own risk, her own marriage. But she said, and I'm a person that when someone points out something, I'm like, okay, I need to get help on this. If there's an issue,
Right.
I know I have a great marriage, but I want to make it better. And so what I really did was I knew a counselor, Dr. Lynn. She had a PhD and she runs a very successful practice. And so as soon as I came back from my holidays, I went to her. I set up an appointment and we started talking. And I shared about what my wife shared, and of course, she asked you a whole bunch of questions. I talked about that I've lived away from my parents all my life. I went to British boarding school. I was in university in Switzerland, and then yeah, she said, yeah, you have detachment issues. I was like, wow. Um, I talked to her about how I have a hard time forgiving people, and how people have told me different things. And then she said, well, yeah, you need to have boundaries. not let people tell you anything. You need to have filters. I had a lot of friends that would just call me and tell all their problems, and then she said, well, you got to have a balanced life. You got to have friends which are encouraging to you and also that are discouraging. And then I also talked about my perfection. I'm a perfectionist. I like everything to be perfect. And many times I was driving my wife and my daughter crazy. I have unrealistic expectations in life. And finally, I was on this treadmill of achievement. Okay, I did my MBA. Okay, great. Got to travel here. And all these things I was setting up by 35, I got to become this, and by 40. But that meeting with Dr. Lynn changed my life. I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you. For the next 5 years, once a week, I saw a life coach at 150 bucks an hour and started talking. And I'll never forget, Angela and Madhu, my first meeting. I walk into the meeting here, and Colleen says, Jerry, how you doing? I'm like, oh, Colleen, I'm successful here. I've got so many friends. I've got this and that. And she said, calm down. I'm not judging you, but if anyone who comes into my room and says they have more friends than their fingers has an issue. And I was just like, okay, all right. And it was a process of talking. I had to read books. I had to do a lot of homework. I had to write a lot of letters,
Mm.
and I had to forgive people. I had to. I had to let go because that was holding me back. And I had to be grateful. But one thing what Colleen taught me was, Jerry, accept your brokenness. You are a broken man, and when you're broken, you let the light come in. That's the only way to deal with darkness. And I struggle with it. I fought it. I'm like, what do you mean I'm broken? Me broken? No. I've never done drugs. I've never done booze. I don't hit women. I graduated from the best boarding school in the world. I went to university in Switzerland. I have an MBA. I'm working on Bay Street. Me and broken? Hold on. Yes, you are broken, and you have to accept it. It was very hard. It was very, very hard. And then the other thing, what was challenging for me, Angela, was that being one of the only working class people in one of the best private schools in the world. Let me give an example. One of my friends is a professor at Harvard University. Another friend is president of Procter and Gamble. Yes, the $8 billion company. The
Wow.
third is a high court judge. The fourth is the number one eye doctor in the United States. Another classmate is a scientist in one of the leading institutions in the world. And one of my friends that I've known since grade 8, him and his wife are right now the lead campaign for the president's in the US. I mean, he'll send me a text about, look at it, look at this guy. The president's son is I'm having dinner with. So what I was doing was I was comparing myself to
Mm.
all these people.
Mm.
In life, you're never going to be happy if you compare yourself.
Good point.
We have to look in the mirror, every one of us. We have to accept ourselves. Each one of us has been given these 5 fingers. See, they're different. And we've been dealt with cards in our life. I cannot say, Angela, I want your card in life. Madhu, I can't say, I want yours.
Right.
We all have struggles. We all have challenges. When you're going for a walk tomorrow, when you're taking the bus, when you're driving, you see all those people. They could be doctors, lawyers, engineers, presidents. Why? We all having our own issues.
So
And
true.
so what happened? It was a painful process. It was not easy those 5 years. I have books that I've read. I had to do homework. I had to go deep down emotionally, deep, 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 deep things and work through things that I had not dealt with. But let me tell you something. After those 5 years, and that I would say was probably between 2011 to 2015. Since 2016, I honestly cannot think of any issues I've had with any human being if I've heard someone I do call them or whatever. I honestly cannot think of any issues I have with any human being if I've heard someone I do call them or whatever. My marriage is great. I have a great relationship with my daughter. I have great relationship with many friends. and it has really helped me. So what I'm going to say is, Angela, is men who are listening here, let go of that ego, let go of that macho thing, and invest in yourself and get help. There is nothing better than you can do for yourself by going, and the counselor is a third person. It could be a life coach, it could be a spiritual coach, it could be a counselor, and they're not going to judge you, they're just going to listen. And sometimes we need that, we need a safe environment just to do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes also men think, and relating back to men think that I'm the only one going through this issue, everyone else is doing fine, I'm the only one. Hold on, if you're the only one going through porn, how come it's a $6 billion industry in the US and
Mm.
North America? If you're the only one going through gambling, then how come it's a $5 billion business in North America? Or if you're only the one having issues with spousal or domestic abuse, no, there's a whole bunch of social workers in the city there. So nothing you're going through that other human beings are not going through. The only people is stop being a victim, stop blaming someone else. And Angela, I want to share something. This was the most difficult thing for me to accept that whole. We have to take responsibility for where we are in life. I cannot blame my mother. I cannot blame my father. I cannot blame this one. I had to take responsibility for where I'm in my life, in my marriage, in my parenting, where I was in my career. And once I let go of that, and I've written an article on my blog, Thrive by Taking Responsibility. It is the number one of my articles, and I get interviewed on it from all over the world. It's
Mhm.
time for us to take responsibility and go getting help. It was
Yeah.
when I went and got help, which was trust me, people think just because I'm emotional. No, I had to stuff my ego. I had to even apologize to my wife. I had to apologize to my daughter many times about the way I had unrealistic expectations from her or from my wife. I had to. I had to. And finally, Angela and Madhu, I'm going to talk to the women here, both of y'all, but also to women who are listening.
Mhm.
I truly believe that, in my honest, women are more intuitive. Men, we're not. We could be going through all kinds of issues, but we are very good at stuffing it.
Mhm.
Okay, and so and sometimes I'm going to talk about, I call it the isms of life. Sometimes we only think of alcoholism or drugism. No, even workaholism. Sometimes I know oh, he's working 80 hours. No, no. If someone's a workaholic, there's deeper issues there too.
Mm.
He or she is hiding under that. So if you see your father, you see your brother, you see your husband, you see your cousin, you see your male friend, or you even see a cousin showing signs of depression that I've talked about here, anger, resentment, bitterness, sudden outbursts, there's a deeper issue there. And talk to them very nicely, very gently, very lovingly, not attacking, and saying, hey, Jerry, I'm noticing these things in you. Is there something going on? Can I help you? Have you ever thought of getting help, counseling? And a lot of people who work have something called EAP, Employee Assistance Program, where it's free. Go get help. Go speak to a social worker. And honestly, it is the best thing you ever done for yourself. And I'm going to end with one thing, Madhu. I wish I had done that my help 20 years back, because today I would have been a president of a company. Because many times I reacted emotionally. I was not emotionally intelligent in many situations in my career. But I'm glad my wife brought this up nearly 10 years back, because I'm a much, much better person. I'm not even the same person I was 5, 6 years back in many, many areas. And so we got to stop blaming. We got to stop blaming our past and just taking responsibility for ourselves and thriving. And that's why I'm here. And I want every one of your listeners to thrive and do well, because that's what we are meant to be in this world, not be attached or bound by issues that we are facing.
So true.
Wow, that is good stuff. Like, given us so much to think about, like, super good food for thought. Thank you,
Definitely.
Jerry, for all those insights. And even me, I'm going to start looking at every man differently. No judgment here, no judgment. But thank you so much. Um,
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I consider a privilege and an honor.
It is an honor on our side as well, absolutely, to have you here. To our viewers, please do check out Jerry's blog, Four Columns of a Balanced Life. We will put a link below, and then the unique and informative podcast, The Elephant in the Asian Room. That's mind-blowing stuff. Thank you so much for watching.